Hello everyone, welcome back to another painting tutorial video. In this video I show you how to paint Thorns of the Briar Queen. Here is the list of the colors that I will be using on this miniature. I will leave it also down in the description below. The miniatures are fully assembled and primed in white. The first color that I'm using is Nighthaunt Gloom. It's mixed with Lamian Medium. I want a 3-part ratio and just give a whole surface wash in the robe and also on the body. I am building up the desired look, so I apply a second layer for the better effect. Once the first color is completely dry, then I use another mix, this time Drakenhof Nightshade mixed with Lamian Medium, a 1:3-part ratio, and I wash the whole surface, which I have painted before. Now I'll move to another mix, and it's Druchii Violet mixed with Lamian Medium, 1:3 ratio, and I apply it around 75% on the top section of the miniature, so that the previous color is still visible on the lower section. I apply a second layer, but this time I put it only around the hip, the underrobe area, to get a nice dark shade finish on the miniature. Once the last wash is completely dry, now I'm using Ulthuan Grey and start dry brushing the whole area of the miniature. Towards the end of the miniature I give a bit of more pressure, so get a nicer transition. Then also with the same color, with a small brush, just correcting and also highlighting the areas that I might have missed with the dry brush. But it's a nice mix of highlighting as well, so to really blend together all these colors. And then I'm finishing it with white scar, so giving a fine highlight in the whole area of the robe and also the spiritual wave, so really blends together nicely. I use Khorne Red on the corset as a base paint. Then I apply Nuln oil wash, being careful in the closest parts where it is already been painted, especially in more of a spiritual way, so that not to really get there any paint. Once the wash is completely dry, then I use Dagger Red as a layer. And finishing it with a highlight of Wild Rider Red. And now the leather part for the corset is now finished. For the skin, I use Agrax skin as a base paint. There isn't a lot of area on it to paint, so mainly just the hands. It's nicely blending together already with the painted area, so but obviously it's best not to overgo where it is already been painted. I apply Drakenhof Nightshade mixed with Lamium Medium, 1:3 part ratio, and giving a wash in the arms. Now I'm going back with Ironrack skin and just dry brush the arms so that still get that nice transition. And start highlighting with Deep Kim Flash. And I apply just a touch of Raglan Flash Shade Wash on the hands to create a transition from physical to spiritual. The first color I use is dried bark, and with this color I base paint the dagger holster and also the handle. The next color I use is Balthazar Gold as a base paint and start covering the details on the dagger and also the jewelry. I use Morghast Bone as a base color for the skull. Now she is a queen, so I was thinking she's more noble and cleaner. So this is the reason why I'm using this color for the skull. I use Zandri Dust on the small details on the corset, such as the straps and also the dagger holder straps as well is being base painted with it. Now that all the small details are painted and based, I use Agrax Earthshade wash and apply it in all these areas which I painted. So the dagger, the jewelry, and also the straps. Once the wash is completely dry, then I start highlighting, and the first color I use is Steel Legion Drab. With this color I highlight the dagger, the holder, and the holster as well. On the skull I go back with Morghast Bone and highlighting all the areas. Then finishing it with a fine highlight of Screaming Skull and also base painting all the teeth. I use Retributor armor for the jewelries and also the gold details. I also apply it on the corset, just on the lower section as a highlight. I base paint the gems with Nagaroth Night. Then I highlight it with Pink Horror. And finishing it with a dot of white scar in all the gems. The first color I use is Deathworld Forest, and I start base painting the Thorns. I'm using dried bark as a base color for all the thorn spikes. I use as a highlight Elysian green on the thorn spikes, just on the tip and also on the veins in some random areas, so that still shows like a touch of some of these areas are alive. With Dagger of Night, I base paint the roses. I use Nuln oil wash on the roses. And with Slaanesh Grey I highlight all the flowers. I use Mechanical Standard Grey on the base stones and base painting it. With Steel Agent Drab, I base paint the soil. I apply Agrax Earthshade in both painted areas. I'm using Mechanical Standard Grey again. With a dry brush, I start dry brushing all the stones. Then I use Dawn Stone with the same technique, dry brushing. And just with a touch of Administratum Grey, again a light dry brush in the stone areas. I dry brush the soil with Zandri Dust. After the dry brush, I paint the thorns and the skull and bones in the exact same way as in the video. And finishing it with Nighthaunt Gloom. I apply it just where the connection of the spiritual effect and the base is, so that giving a sort of glowing effect to it. Now the Briar Queen's Chainrasps are painted exactly the same way as I have it in my previous video, but here are some extras that I am actually doing, such as the glowing eyes on the skull. I use White Scar as a base paint and just covering only the eye sockets first. Then I am using Lilac Oxide. Once the White Scar is completely dry, then just apply it in the eye sockets. Then once the Lilac Oxide is dry, then I am applying a Coelia Greenshade wash. On the head sack, I use Abaddon Black as a base paint and start covering it, being careful that in the back of the head there is a hole, so that one I leave it with Morghast Bone. I am now using Dark Reaper and start dry brushing the Abaddon Black areas to give that nice highlight. And with Mechanicus Standard Grey, I give a fine highlight, and I just use it only in the sharpest features, so the nose tip, the eye socket tops, and the edges of the socket. On the ropes, I use Steel Agent Drab as a base paint, so I start covering all these ropes. Then I am using Agrax Earthshade wash in all the Steel Legion Drab areas. And finishing it with a highlight of Zandri Dust. The only thing that's left to do is base paint the rim of the bases, which I am using Abaddon Black, and the unit is complete. I really like the Queen's art concept from Underworld Nightvault, so I tried to paint it as similar as possible. I'm quite happy with the result. Please let me know in the comment section what do you think. And here is the Queen with her trusty Chainrasps. If you find the video useful, please give it a like, which helps out the channel a lot. Also, please subscribe if you haven't yet to watch more of my contents. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. Also, for more pictures and future projects, visit my social media pages, where you can find it in the description below. See you in the next video. Cheers!